Welcome! You are ready for another extension. So now we are going to do the quadratic formula with imaginary numbers. We're going to see what happens there. So first things first, go to your table of contents. We're going to add quadratic formula again. Okay, this one's going to have imaginary solutions. At the top of your page, I want you to write quadratic formula, and I want you to write the quadratic formula. So go ahead and add this to the top of your page. Okay, we're also going to write down, we're going to remind ourselves that I is equal to the square root of -1. Add that to the top of page 1. And just quickly jot down these steps so that we have them while we're working. So remember, standard form, which means equal to 0. We're going to find A, B, and C, and then we're going to plug into the formula and simplify. Pause your video, get all of that, come on back. Okay, let's start working the steps. So step 1 is to enter or to make sure it's in standard form, equal to 0. And if you see, we've got ours equal to 0 right now. So we are done with step 1. Step 2 is to find the A, B, and C. So remember, A, B, and C are numbers only. Numbers only. So I've got A is 6, B is 3, and C is 2. Okay, next step is to plug into the quadratic formula and simplify. Okay, I always like to do colors, but you have already actually mastered this, so I'm not going to worry about doing all my colors. So I've got x equals the opposite of b, which is 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 6, times c, which is 2. All over 2 times a, 2 times 6. Okay, and just like when we did the quadratic formula before, I'm going to simplify everything under the radical. So not including the radical, but everything under the radical. Okay, so I'm going to push this off to the side, and I'm going to get my Desmos open to do this. So I've got 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 6, if I could type, times 2, which gives me -39. So here I've got x, oops, where's my pen? There it is. So I got x equals the opposite of 3 plus or minus the square root. And now under the square root, instead of having that big monster of a thing, I've got -39. And it's all over 12 because I did 2 times 6. Okay, now that I've got that, I can go ahead and try to simplify my -39. So when I'm looking at this, -39 is going to fall right between the 49 and the 36. So I've got to try these numbers going up. So I'm going to start with 36, 39 divided by 36, decimal. 25 is a decimal, 16 is a decimal, 9 is a decimal, 4 is a decimal, and then remember 1 isn't going to change anything. But what I am going to take out, because it was a negative, is I'm going to take out a -1. So I've got the square root of -39, and I'm going to break it up into the square root of -1 times the square root of 39. So square root of -1 is I, and square root of 39 is just square root of 39. So that's what I'm going to put in that place. So this answer turns into x equals the -3 plus or minus I square root of 39 all over 12. Now remember, this is where I would simplify if I can, but I can't take a number out of 3. If there's no number here, remember that's an invisible 1, so this is 1i. So I can't take a number out of 3, 1, and 12. So I'm all done with this problem. So I could just write my final answer as x equals -3 plus or minus I square root of 39 all over 12. Okay, so let's try another problem. Again, We need to make sure it's equal to 0. Done. Next up, we need to plug in the quadratic formula. So remember, it's the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's identify our a, b, and c. This time our a is 5, our b is -4, and our c is 6. So let's plug that in. So I got x equals the opposite of b, so the opposite of -4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, -4 squared, minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, so let's just start working it. We've got to do everything under the radical. Actually, I like to simplify these 3 parts. I like to simplify that, this, and this. So the opposite of -4 is going to be +4. I've got plus or minus. I've still got my square root. And it's going to be over. Come on, I don't know why this is selected. Right, it's going to be over 10. Because 2 times 5 is 10. So now I'm ready to plug this big mammoth thing into Desmos. So I've got -4 squared minus 4 times 5 times 6. So I've got -104. -104. So remember, I'm going to take it off to the side, square root of -104, and I'm going to see what perfect square fits into it. So when I'm doing this, again, I'm going to use Desmos to help me. So I've got to start with 104 divided by 100, decimal 81, decimal 64, decimal 49, decimal 36 is a decimal, 25 is a decimal, 16 is a decimal, 9 is a decimal, oh, and 4 is a whole number. So I'm going to break this up into -4, because I want the negative to go with it, and square root of 26. So once I do that, I could say the square root of -4 is plus or minus 2i, and the square root of 26 doesn't have one, so I'm just going to bring it down. And I'm going to pop that back in this place. So I end up with x equals 4 plus or minus 2i square root of 26 all over 10. Now, just like we did when it was just whole numbers and positive numbers, I could simplify this. So we've got 4, 2, and 10. So I could take out a 2 from each of those. So I'm going to factor out a 2 from each of those. And remember, factor out just means divide it out. So I've got x equals 4 divided by 2 gives me 2, plus or minus 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. I'm going to ignore the other stuff for a second, and 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. And I am just going to pop the I and the square root of 26 back in there because they do not change when I'm simplifying this. And that is my final answer. You could also change that 1, this one, into a invisible one. So you could have also written it as 2 plus or minus I square root of 26 all over 5. Okay, both are equally good. So now we're going to do some practice. Okay, if you have questions, call over your teacher and we can work it out with you.